In the final years of the Second World War, Germany was no longer designing weapons to win battles. It was designing weapons out of desperation. By 1943, the strategic situation had changed completely. The Eastern Front was collapsing. The Allies controlled the skies. Factories were being bombed daily, and fuel shortages crippled armored units. Yet inside German design offices, engineers were still working on something extraordinary. Not a tank, not artillery, but a land-based warship. A machine so large that it could not cross bridges, so heavy that it would crush roads beneath it, and so ambitious that it never left the drawing board. This was the Landkreuzer P.1000, better known as Ratte. German military doctrine before and during World War II placed enormous emphasis on decisive force, speed, shock, and psychological dominance. Early successes reinforced this belief. Fast-moving armored units overwhelmed opponents. Air support amplified breakthroughs. And the idea that superior technology could compensate for numerical disadvantage became deeply ingrained. As the war progressed, this mindset evolved into something more dangerous. Weapons were no longer designed for efficiency. They were designed for intimidation. Tanks grew heavier, guns grew larger, and complexity increased with every new design. The Tiger tank was followed by the Panther by the Tiger II, and eventually by the Mouse. Each step pushed the limits of practicality. The Landkreuzer concept was the final step in this progression. The idea emerged around 1942. The concept was simple in theory. If naval guns could dominate at sea, why not mount them on land? Germany already produced massive naval artillery. Engineers understood these weapons. The question was not firepower, but mobility. Design proposals were reviewed within Germany's armaments bureaucracy. Krupp evaluated feasibility, and Army weapons offices reviewed conceptual drawings. This was not a fantasy drawn by amateurs. It was an official design study. However, no serious consideration was given to battlefield reality. The Landkreuzer P.1000 was envisioned as a mobile fortress. Its role was not maneuver warfare. It was not meant to flank or exploit breakthroughs. Instead, it was designed to dominate fixed positions, advancing slowly, supported by infantry and smaller armored units, destroying enemy fortifications with naval-grade guns. It was intended as a psychological weapon as much as a physical one. On paper, the estimated weight of the Ratte was approximately 1,000 metric tons. For comparison, a Tiger I weighed about 57 tons, and the Mouse weighed roughly 188 tons. The Ratte would have outweighed 5 Mouse tanks combined. Its primary armament consisted of two 280mm naval guns, weapons designed for battleships. Each shell weighed hundreds of kilograms, and recoil alone posed enormous engineering challenges. Secondary armament included 128mm anti-tank guns, multiple anti-aircraft cannons, and close defense machine guns. This required a large crew, estimated between 20 and 40 personnel. Armor thickness estimates ranged from 200 to 250 millimeters on the front. On paper, this made the Ratte nearly immune to ground-based anti-tank weapons. However, armor does not exist in isolation. Mobility was the single greatest flaw in the entire concept. No European bridge could support its weight. Roads would collapse. Rail transport was impossible. Even assembly at the battlefield posed massive problems. The turning radius would be enormous. Urban environments would be inaccessible, and soft ground would immobilize it instantly. Theoretical speed meant nothing. Real-world terrain would reduce it to a crawling target. A weapon that cannot maneuver is not a weapon. It is a liability. By the time the Ratte was proposed, Germany had already lost air superiority. A vehicle of this size could not hide, could not disperse, and could not retreat quickly. From the air, it would be visible for kilometers. Allied aircraft would identify it instantly as a high-value target. No amount of onboard anti-aircraft guns could protect it from coordinated air attacks. The battlefield had changed, and the Rat belonged to an earlier era. Germany in 1944 faced severe fuel shortages. Entire tank units were abandoned due to lack of fuel. The Rat would have consumed extraordinary quantities of fuel simply to move. Maintenance requirements would be constant, spare parts would be unique, and recovery after breakdown would be nearly impossible. Logistically, the Rat made no sense. Eventually, reality intervened. Leadership recognized that the project consumed resources without offering realistic battlefield value. No prototype was built, no production began, and the project was quietly abandoned. The Landkreuzer P.1000 ended where it began, on paper. The Rat was not just a weapon design, it was a symbol of desperation, misplaced priorities, and ambition overwhelming logic. It demonstrated that technological scale does not equal effectiveness. Wars are won by coordination, logistics, and adaptability, not by the largest gun. The Landkreuzer P.1000 was not science fiction. It was a real proposal, reviewed by real engineers. But it never existed as a machine. It existed only as an idea too large for reality. And that is why it belongs in the archive of forgotten weapons.